So, if you stumble across this episode, you're probably wondering who we are and whether you should bother listening to us if we have any authority in the world of cybersecurity. So that's exactly what this little mini episode is all about. You can get to know myself, Josh Davies, and my co-presenter, Tyler Reguly. So, Tyler, as I've started talking, I'm going to ask you, who are you and what's your background in cybersecurity?
Well, first, thank you for pronouncing my name properly. That rarely, if ever, happens. So I'm rather impressed that you got it right.
I was worried.
So that's excellent. Who am I? I'm nobody, but hopefully I'm nobody who's interesting to listen to. I've spent the last 20 years, February 20th, 2026 will mark 20 years in the vulnerability management space. And in that time, I've expanded my scope and worked beyond vulnerability management. My background, by the way, is in IT. I went to school for sysadmin, network admin, did my CCNA, CCNP, all the stuff that you're supposed to do to be a network admin or an IT professional. And then lucked into a security research job in the vulnerability management space with a company called InCircle at the time. From there, InCircle was acquired by Tripwire. I saw my responsibilities expanded to include file integrity monitoring, secure configuration management, a lot of research in those spaces. Started spending a lot of time looking at things like PCI and MITRE ATT&CK and things like that. Tripwire was eventually acquired by Fortra, which is where I currently work. And my scope has expanded beyond just those two to also include things like tech writing, security awareness training, human risk management, phishing simulations. So quite a breadth of things that I've done professionally. On top of that, I spent 5 or 6 years at least teaching at a local community college, teaching malware research, reverse engineering, exploit development, basic computer security, Python programming, Internet of Things. I've done trainings at conferences like Sector, where we spent 8 or 9 years running an IoT hack lab, teaching people how to hack IoT devices, running trainings on IoT hacking as well. Speaking at conferences, Sector, RSA, local Toronto-based things like OWASP Toronto and Task, as well as a number of other places, the CCTX, Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange Symposium last year, and course development. So all those courses that I taught, I also developed all of the content for all of those. And then the coolest thing I've ever done is book editing. 3 different books. I'm only going to mention 2 of them because one is not a good book. But the other 2 are fantastic books. And that's Fyodor's Nmap book. I got to do some editing on a few chapters of that. And the other one is No Starch Press's Practical Packet Analysis. A couple of editions of that. And that is, if you want to get into packet analysis, you want to learn Wireshark, that is the manual for doing it. So I think I've done quite a bit over the years.
I'd say. Yeah, I mean,
and
Tyler, if I could jump in there, because I did not know that you had a pan to play in that book, and that was one that I read in the early days of my cybersecurity career, because we did a lot of packet analysis, Wireshark viewing, part of the IDS, intrusion detection system that we had. So that's really cool.
The author, Chris Sanders, I mean, he wrote a fantastic book, but being able to go through and make some suggestions and tweaks and offer up some other things was a lot of fun. But the one thing I want to address, and then I'm curious to hear, Josh, how you got into computers, but I want to address how I really got into IT and into computers and fascinated by it in the first place. And the year was 1996. My parents had just bought our first home computer, and I had to share it with my sister. Windows 95, I had to install it off of 30 floppy disks, one by one. It was a lot of fun. But I realized that Windows was easy to use, and that meant my sister could use the computer. So I had to share my time on the computer with her, which I didn't want to do. So the easiest way to do that is make it so it wasn't as easy to use. I immediately downloaded Slackware Linux, wiped Windows off the computer, and installed Slackware, which was quite the learning experience for 14-year-old me to have to figure out how to build modem drivers and get PPP dialers working and everything. In the days before most of the resources we rely on these days existed. So I learned a ton about computers, and nobody else in my family could use the computer. So I had unrestricted access to it 24/7, which was absolutely amazing.
So thanks to your, I don't know if it's hatred for your sister or desire to be left alone, we have that to thank for you getting into cybersecurity and being with us now.
Exactly.
I mean, that's almost the start of a villain arc. So it's a good thing you're not a black hat, and we kept you on the good guys team all this time. But that's awesome. And I was actually going to ask you that because I mean about how you first got into it, because I think anyone who's watching this on YouTube, you can look at us and there's a bit of a gap between Tyler and I. He is the true expert thanks to his extensive experience, and I'm really intrigued at that kind of where IT became security for people, because I think it was a transition for me and myself, and I think I got into quite an early time. But before that, really intrigues me. So you had that job as a researcher, right? That was the first real security role. But maybe you could talk a little bit about that transition, where how you went from tech to security, or how that was maybe two tandem things you were doing at once.
Yeah, I had I can't say the worst job I ever had, because I've done everything from sheet metal work to fast food work to call center work over the years. But um, I was working as a IT services manager. Sounds like a fancy title. It was really a way of saying jack of all trades for a 20-person marketing company. And I was responsible for everything from maintaining the servers to doing animated GIFs at the time, to Flash development, to changing print cartridges. It was a mixed bag of random things. But for several years at that point, I had been a moderator on an online forum called Anti-Online. Used to be really big back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I had spent a ton of time there writing tutorials, contributing to their newsletters, gotten to know people really well. And one of the other moderators was like, hey, there's this job at this company in Toronto. I lived a couple hours outside of Toronto, at this company called InCircle. You should go apply for it. And I applied for the job, and I came in, I did my interviews, met some absolutely fantastic people. But the director of the team at the time, Mike Murray, absolutely fantastic human being that he was, he had wanted to know, we were talking about my trip there and stuff. And I'd said, oh yeah, I came over on the bus. And the bus broke down halfway between where I was coming from, London, Ontario, and Toronto. And I was going to miss my interview because the bus had broken down. We were stranded on the side of the road. So I got a cab. I was making, as an IT services manager, $21,000 a year. Not a lot of money. And I took a $140 cab ride to get to my interview on time, and made the interview. And I still think that was probably the only reason I got hired, because he commented multiple times and meeting up at RSA and stuff. And, when he introduced me to people years later, he would often mention the dedication that showed to make the interview. And so I think that alone, I don't think it was anything that I'd done technically or anything that I'd done otherwise. I think that played a huge role in landing me that first cybersecurity job.
Awesome. I love to hear the kind of dominoes that fall to get people to where they are today. But that's a lesson I've always carried through myself. If you can't be the best, be memorable. So I think you did that there.
And so what about you? I've talked a lot, probably more than I should, or anyone cares to hear me talk, but how did you get from where you started to here?
Sure. So maybe I don't have as much to cover, but we'll see where we go, because I kind of fell into cybersecurity a little bit. guess I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do as a career, and so I decided to go to university and study law because it felt like the safest bet that there was. Um, and I did like the kind of grey areas that existed within law, or what I thought existed, thanks to like TV shows like Suits that you see. Got there and enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the content, but actually, what grabbed me was a module in international law, conflict and strategy, and it was probably only 20 minutes of this entire like terms course where he covered off Stuxnet, 2005 geopolitical attack on Iranian lab for developing nuclear weapons, allegedly attributed to the US. And that was what we discussed, but how attribution is nigh impossible. Even if you are confident that these things point there, you never can really be confident enough to the level that you can attribute something in a court of law. So that just really piqued my interest. And I didn't really realize it at the time. I didn't launch straight into going down a cybersecurity pathway. But after I graduated, started my career a little bit, and I was thinking, I'm looking for something a little bit different. I've always been that jack of all trades. I think it's a common feature of cybersecurity professionals, as you mentioned that earlier. That you were Jack also. So I did. I had a master's in ancient history because I wanted to do more of a jack of another trade. And then I went down the paralegal route, kind of was very close, about a year or two from graduating to be a full-blown lawyer, when a friend of mine said that he just got a role in a cybersecurity company, and I'd been cheerleading him and helping him with the little bits that I knew, but I thought it was out of the question, out of the bounds that somebody like myself could reach for having zero relevant qualifications, right? But he, after a few months of doing the job, he kind of started messaging me and saying, "Hey, you could do this. This is kind of suits you." And I didn't really believe him at first, but then I started to take his advice, and he kind of mentored me a little bit. I had some affinity for tech with web design, which I did as a teenager. Enjoyed it, but kind of making websites for my gaming community at the time, and also looking for free great games as a teenager with no money, and finding viruses and malware, and then having to clean them myself or get in trouble with my my father, who was the computer guy. So that started my career in, and the I would say a level 0 analyst. They kind of saw that I had no relevant skills, but took a chance on me and put me at the very, very bottom. And I was like a sponge. I got to absorb it doing it was a small part of incident response. It was more like just monitoring really basic PCI orientated log review cases. So I look at the last 24 hours of data and find anomalies or not, and escalate that manually. Now that's an entirely automated job thanks to machine learning and AI. So fast forward through that, did that for a number of years, kind of ran my way through the ranks, went into full incident response, kind of doing threat detection and response, and then calling up. I did it for managed service providers, so calling up lots of employee organizations to say, "Hey, you're compromised," and working with them. So that's where I got my real security expertise. And then I was off to go to work to kind of combine the law and security angle. I wanted to do digital forensics, a consultancy, because I still had half an idea that maybe I'd be Josh Davies, cyber lawyer, one day in the future. Not that job really exists right now, and it still doesn't, or back then it definitely didn't. But I was actually countered, and I found myself working for the same company I was trying to leave in a solutions engineering role, a pre-sales role, which I was reluctant to take, but kind of took some advice that, hey, give this a go. You can always carry on your kind of technical side of the career. And I learned there the difference between my ideals of cybersecurity, because I think when you start off, you learn how everything should be, and you have this assumption that everyone's doing at least the basics right, and then talking to real companies trying to implement security strategies, some with some pretty mature stuff that you could fit in and improve, some who were starting from scratch, or some who just didn't have a clue what was going on and would rather bury their head in the sand than invest in kind of monitoring technology that then raises the problems up to them. So that was the interest in my idealized version of security, is meeting the reality of the world and real world security strategies. Fast forward, did a little bit of marketing, and another bit of the dark side, sales and marketing, before returning to maybe the light side, or maybe somewhere in the middle, bringing balance back to the force. I'm now on a product strategist. I'm on a strategy team, back in with some real technical folks, and really getting to apply my technical side as well as the softer side that I learned in sales and marketing.
Very cool. There's another commonality between us. You mentioned the jack of all trades. cyber lawyer. So when I was in high school, one of my favorite things that I did was take part on my school's mock trial team.
I did that too.
And I absolutely loved it. And we actually won. Our region got to go to provincials, actually argue in front of the provincial court here, our case, real judges and everything, which was a ton of fun. And afterwards go to this big fancy dinner with all of the judges and sit down and talk to them and ask them questions. And that was actually the entire conversation I had with the judge at dinner, was on the fact that I saw an interesting spot that didn't exist. Again, this was the late 90s, which was, law and computers, and there wasn't a whole lot existing there. And that was what I wanted to do at that time. I decided that I liked being hands-on way too much to go pursue something like law school. So I went instead for a hands-on education with computers, but that was in high school, something I was very interested in. But what I want to know more than anything from you talking about that is, do we have pictures of you in robes and the white wig from any of your time in school?
So that is definitely the image of the UK courts, and I have spent time with those barristers, as they call them, who wear the wigs and the gowns. They're actually trying to modernize and remove that entirely now. So no, you won't find any, but my grandfather was a barrister, and I do have his set somewhere. So maybe one day, maybe if we run enough bets on this, one day you'll get to see me in that for a podcast episode.
Oh, that'd be awesome. A couple of years ago, a colleague and I did a presentation at RSA where we put security bulletins on trial. That was the name of it. And we actually argued as if it was a legal case. So maybe we can do something like that one day and have you dress up and play the part.
Yeah, I did the mock trials too. So
excellent. I guess everybody knows a little bit about both of us now. If there's things you want to know our opinions on now that you know our backgrounds, leave a comment down below and let us know that. I think the typical YouTube thing is like, follow, and subscribe. I'm sure we'll get that down pat in some sort of cool way over time. But for now, we have that. And hopefully we were interesting enough that you want to come back and hear what we have to say in the future.
Yeah, and hit that bell. And if you're still interested, now you know our credentials and you have a reason to listen to us. Maybe you just enjoyed some of the patter. Just click that next episode, because we're going to tell you exactly what this podcast is all about and why we called it The Art of Security.